Welcome to Stingray Tom's Florida and another Take 5 for Florida history. Today I'm looking at the Florida largemouth bass. This is the 13th part of my series on Florida's official state symbols. Each is a standalone video, so there's no need to watch the others before you watch this one. I do suggest that you view the introduction video linked here, since it gives an overview of the state symbols and how they were chosen. This video is about the largemouth bass, specifically the one known as the Florida bass. Created the state's official freshwater fish by the legislature in 1975, it was chosen along with the Atlantic sailfish, manatee, and dolphin, as the state seemed to have been focused on water in that legislative session. This makes the bass one of 2 fish on the official list, which also has 5 mammals, 3 reptiles, 2 invertebrates, and only 1 bird. 4 states list the largemouth bass as an official fish. There's 11 other states that list different bass species, with the clear leader being the striped bass, which represents 6 states. By the way, the striped bass is generally a saltwater species, though it's been introduced and does well in some freshwater locations in Florida and Georgia. Like so much in the world of animals, figuring out exactly how the Florida bass is related to other bass species is tricky. It and other largemouth bass are part of the genus Micropterus, commonly known as black bass, and the family Centrachidae, which includes sunfish and crappie. The Florida bass is generally considered a separate species from other bass such as regular largemouth, swanee, and Chattahoochee, and smallmouth. And yes, smallmouth bass have smaller mouths than largemouth. While a distinct species today, one just has to take a look at them to see why they were long thought to be just a variety. No state is more associated with water than is Florida. Both fresh and saltwater fishing continue to be among the most popular tourist activities, with millions of dollars of revenue going to the state and private businesses every year. Now, before I get into the details, I want to say that there will be photos of fishing and caught fish. If you don't want to view those subjects, this isn't the video for you. So now, let's check out the Florida bass and why it's the official state freshwater fish. The Florida bass is common throughout most of Florida's lakes and rivers outside of the Panhandle. This graphic, courtesy of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, shows the ranges of the various largemouth bass species in the state. There are several species of bass native to the state, all of which are considered game fish. The Florida bass is the largest one and the largest member of the sunfish family. It has light green to brown sides with a dark lateral line which tends to break into blotches towards the tail. Often confused with smallmouth and spotted bass, it can be distinguished since the upper jaw extends beyond the rear edge of the eye. Its first and second dorsal fins are separated by an obvious deep dip, and there are no scales on the second dorsal fin or the anal fin. Sometimes called the northern largemouth to distinguish it from the Florida variety, the standard largemouth is common throughout the southern U.S. with the exception of the Florida peninsula. The two look much the same, with relatively minor differences, including that the Florida bass has 69 to 73 scales along the lateral line, whereas the northern has 59 to 65 scales. Not a big difference. Florida bass also grow more quickly and typically reach larger sizes. However, the official record bass was a standard largemouth at 22 pounds and 4 ounces, or 10 kilograms. It was caught in Montgomery Lake, Georgia in 1932. Record lengths for Florida bass are nearly 26 inches or 65 centimeters long. Florida's largest lakes, such as Lake Okeechobee and Lake George, are some of the best places to find the largest bass, though they can be found just about anywhere. For perspective on how important freshwater fishing is to Florida, the state's 10 largest lakes total 1,140 square miles or 2,950 square kilometers. That's nearly the size of Broward County, though Lake Okeechobee itself accounts for 2/3 of the freshwater square mileage. There are dozens of bass fishing tournaments held each year throughout the state, often on these larger lakes. The largest Florida bass are females, as they're known to both grow larger and live longer than males. By the time they reach their second year, females, which grow more quickly, are typically larger than males of the same age. Males seldom exceed 16 inches or 40 centimeters, while females often surpass 22 inches or 56 centimeters. Likewise, at 5 years, females can be twice the weight of males. Studies have shown that nearly every Florida bass over 8 pounds, or 3.6 kilograms, is female. Like most fish, it's unclear as to how long Florida bass live, but there's one case, documented by Florida biologists, as living in captivity until she was 16. Despite the size difference, distinguishing between male and female bass is difficult, even during the spawning season, though at that time you might be able to see milt, the male's seminal fluid, seeping from their vent, or greenish-colored eggs may appear at the vent of the females. Spawning happens in winter, with the peak months being February and March, and the water temperature needs to be around 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 15.5 degrees Celsius, or warmer. The male builds a dinner plate-shaped nest about 2 feet or 60 centimeters in diameter. He clears the bottom by essentially plowing the sand and silt with his lower jaw while swimming in circles. Nests are located along the shoreline in places where the current is fairly weak. Large females can produce up to 100,000 tiny eggs, each only about 1.5 millimeters in diameter. Combining with the milt, the eggs will hatch within a week, producing nearly microscopic young, known as fry. They're immobile for another week as they continue to feed on their egg's yolk. At that point, they begin to move around and feed on plankton as the father defends his offspring by attacking any predators. Mom has an easy time of it as she just leaves while Dad takes a very active role in caring for the fry. It's estimated that he could swim 20 miles or 30 kilometers in a day, all without leaving the immediate vicinity of the nest. He fans the nest with his fins to keep it clean and to maintain a level of oxygenation. After about a month, the fry will reach about 1 centimeter in length and are able to leave the nest. During this entire month, the male will mostly go without food, living off of his fat resources. He built that up during the summer and fall, and any shortfalls, such as due to environmental issues, would make it difficult for some, especially younger ones, to successfully take care of the fry. In fact, studies show that as many as 40% of males are unable to successfully take care of the nests and offspring for the entire month. This inevitably results in a lower success rate for the survival of the young. Florida bass are successful in most of the state's aquatic environments, though they're found in higher concentrations in warmer and densely vegetated lakes, rivers, and reservoirs. They're commonly found along the shoreline near logs, rocks, and beds of aquatic plants, which provide cover and food. Preferring clear water, they're comfortable in both fresh and brackish water with a saline content that's higher than many freshwater fish could tolerate. This means they live further down the St. Johns, past Lake George, where the tidal backflow from the Atlantic often reaches. Depending on the size of a Florida bass, they'll feed on any number of animals. Opportunistic and voracious feeders, adults will hunt for fish, crayfish, crabs, frogs, salamanders, snakes, mice, turtles, and birds. Really anything of the right size that finds itself in the water. As you can see in this series of photos from the Weeki Wachee Springs Mermaid attraction, a bass can open its mouth larger than it seems possible and swallows its prey whole. There's two methods that they use to capture prey. Ram feeding, in which the bass swims towards the prey with its mouth open and engulfs it, and suction feeding, where the jaws are rapidly expanded near the prey. This causes a lower pressure in the mouth, which sucks the prey in. Similar to alligators, they're largely ambush predators in that they hide and wait for unsuspecting prey items to pass by. Along with its size, the feeding habits of the Florida bass are precisely why it's been considered Florida's most popular freshwater game fish for many years. Its aggressive attitude and willingness to strike a lure or bait with explosive force provide a thrilling moment for the angler. The bass will strike almost any kind of artificial lure or live bait, with plastic worms, surface plugs, spinner baits, bass bugs, and shiner minnows being some of the most popular. The practice of catch and release is encouraged by Florida authorities, and catches are limited to 5 a day, with only one allowed over 16 inches in length. This means that large females, who are typically the best egg producers, are mostly spared in order to keep the Florida bass population healthy and diverse. Anglers can also register qualifying catches as part of the FWC Commission's Big Catch program. Humans aren't the only anglers in the state, however. 2 species of raptors, bald eagles and osprey, feed almost entirely on fish. With over 1,500 nesting pairs, there are more bald eagles in Florida than any other state than Alaska. There's also about twice as many ospreys, with many larger lakes having several nests on the shore. Both are highly skilled at catching fish, with remarkable eyesight that allows them to see fish just below the surface from hundreds of feet away, and an ability to grab them out of the water with their talons. It can be a struggle, as their feathers aren't waterproof like those of ducks, and as you can see with this osprey, getting out of the water when wet and while carrying a fish takes a great deal of effort and strength. By the way, the fish caught by this beautiful osprey isn't a Florida bass. It's a humble mullet. The Florida bass is a bold, intelligent, and agile fish that deserves its place among the state's official symbols. Not only is Florida its home, it's an endemic species, meaning that it's only native to the Florida peninsula. It's also successful in every fresh and brackish water source and is an important part of the ecosystem. It also plays a huge but almost forgotten role in Florida tourism. More people recreationally fish in Florida than any other state, and more visitors travel to Florida and fish than in any other state. In 2016, about $4.6 billion in revenue was generated by freshwater fishing in the state, and the Florida bass is a major draw for most anglers. Thank you for watching another of my videos. Please hit the like button and subscribe in order to learn more about Florida tourism history. Stingray Tom's Florida, traveling through time around the Sunshine State.